Hello there everyone, Inky Fingers here. This is Inky Fingers Architectural Art. Well, today I'm going to attempt to paint one of the more famous streets in England. It's quite a large tourist destination, and this scene has been painted many times before by many other artists. So I thought I'd give it a go. Which famous street is it? No, it's not Coronation Street, it's another type of street. So let's see, shall we? Well, this is the advert, 1973, directed by Ridley Scott and filmed in Gold Hill in Shaftesbury, Dorset. This is the view that we're going to paint today. Okay, so now you've seen the scene from 1973. So the colours are quite nice on this. We've got some lovely red brick tiles. We can merge some colours into these tiles, wet and wet, to give a nice variation. We've got a thatched roof, which is always nice to paint. We've got some nice light, sort of neutral red, an ochre type of brickwork. And we've got some, of course, some nice whitewashed walls. So when we put the shadows in, put darker shadows along a much lighter wall, always looks good. And of course we've got a nice bit of distance. So it's already drawn out. Because it is a little bit more of a complicated scene, again I've drawn it in quite heavy pencil, just so you can actually see the drawing itself. Normally I would do it with a 3H pencil, which is much lighter, but it doesn't really show up very well on camera. This is a 2B pencil, which does show up. And also you can find this on the community page, the Inky Fingers Architectural Art, where I'll put the outline so you can save it and do whatever you like with it. But this picture is going to be inked in first, and I think what I might try, I'll use the Pilot parallel pen. Now, just to recap, I've showed this before, but this pen, it's called a parallel pen because we have two parallel pieces of metal sandwiched together, of which the ink flows through, and the tip on this is 1.5 millimeters. You can get this tip in many different widths. This is the smallest, and it's not a drawing pen as such, it's a calligraphy pen, but the way it depends on how you hold this pen, you can really get nice different line widths. So because it's already drawn out in pencil, all we need to do is to go over the lines we've already done until it's all inked in. Now, how I'm using this pen is I'm using just the very tip to get a thin line, and you can get nice thin lines. If you use it normally as you would hold the pen, then you can get you're basically using the full 1.5 millimeter tip, and you get nice thick lines. But because it's a calligraphy pen, you can, I'm not very good at calligraphy, you can sort of get calligraphy type of lines, but in this case I'm just using the corner to get nice thin lines. So I'm just going to go over the main lines. And I shall just do this for all of the picture. And then for any detail work, for example putting some tiles on the roof, you might be able to use this, or depending how fine I want to go, I might use something like a 003 or a 005 Unipin fine liner. But I'll just continue going over my pencil and inking all of this in. So when I'm finished, I'll be back. So that's the picture now all inked in. I haven't done any of the background because this is just going to be like landscape in the distance. So I'm not going to, or I don't think at this point I would put any pen on there. If we put pen on, it may bring it forward because we're going to have definite hard lines. So I think I'll just leave this uninked and I'll just paint in the background. So I will show a little bit of how I'm going to put these, like the tiles in. I've decided I am going to use this Pilot parallel pen for everything because it's very capable of doing things. And no, I haven't had an accident. This is just a little glove I made up. So when I draw things, I'm not putting grease on the paper. So if you start with this roof here, all I'm doing is imagining what the tiles are going to look like. I'm not copying off the photograph. And then just scratch on a few of these tiles. I'm not really too bothered about how neat they are. All I want is to make them look like that there's something there. If you go look at this roof here, now on the photograph there is some quite dark areas just underneath the tiles here, where one tile slightly overlaps the one in front, I suppose. So this pen, very, very good for that, because if we turn the pen a little bit and so we're using more of the flat surface, we get a nice thick juicy line like so. So this is all I'm going to do for the other roofs. There's nothing different. It's just as we get farther away from our position, the narrower and the smaller the tiles are going to be because of perspective. So I'll do that and then I'll be back. And that's the complete picture inked in. We've got some tiles in the roofs, from larger going smaller, smaller, in the distance to these tiles down here. I've just put some horizontal little stripes. I haven't put vertical because that would be too detailed. It just gives a little bit of texture. So all we need to do now is to get the paint on. So to start this, I'm actually not going to start with the background. I'm going to leave that to last because I'm not sure just how detailed I want to put it. So I'd rather have all the tones and colours on the foreground first, and then I'll decide on what to do with the background. So we're going to start off with the roofs. Now the roofs, we can see it's just sort of a light red and a burnt umberish type of colour. Two different types of colours. Could be wear and tear, it might just be some brown moss on the roof, I'm not really too sure. But for this colour, I'm going to mix up, of course, some light red, beautiful colour. We're going to put in a touch of yellow ochre and a tiny little bit of cobalt blue. It's just going to dirty it up ever so slightly. And then for the sort of browner bits, I'm going to use burnt umber. I don't use this colour much. You can mix browns, but it's a convenience colour. So I'm going to have some brown there, but that's far too chocolatey brown. So again, I'm going to put a little bit of blue. This is again cobalt blue. You could use ultramarine blue, and that's going to give this nice brown colour, darker brown. And this isn't on the photograph, but I'm going to put some green. This is just, you could use any sort of green. And what this is going to be is moss on the roof itself. It always goes well with the red roofs. Well, I'm not going to be really copying the photograph much. I'm going to just be putting this colour on where I feel I want to. So I'm going to just paint this on. We'll have some down here. We'll have a bit down there. And then we're going to go into the brown and just drop some of this brown into this this red, and just basically just let it merge together, let it do what it wants. We'll have a little bit along the edge, so we have something like that. Clean the brush and then into the green, and then I'm just going to drop the green in. Mainly just down by where the eaves are. Yeah, just a touch up there. We'll see how that goes, but that's that roof done. Now this roof, I want to make it different than this to make it stand out from that. Again, some red there. I'm going to put some yellow ochre in. Perhaps a touch of Azo yellow medium, just to line it up a little bit. And then just paint this in. Now we're looking at the photograph. This roof doesn't have as many of the dark bits in, the dark brown bits. So we've got to be very careful here of not to touch this roof that is still wet, because we'll have all sorts of problems. I put just a touch of this colour, dark brown colour in, just to give it a bit of continuity for as we go down. And of course a little bit of green. Streak it up like so. It's pooling a bit here, so I'll just use this sable brush just to suck up this extra, and we'll leave that as that, and we'll see what that turns out like. Now as for these other red roofs, we have a little bit of red roof there, we've got that's red, and we've got this roof there's red. So I'll just do exactly what I've just done, perhaps maybe modifying the colour ever so slightly as we go across, and I'll be back when it's done. And that's all the roof's done. So the only roof we need to put in now is the thatch. Now the thatch, I have done thatch roofs in the past, but I will paint this one. The thatch in this picture is not your usual yellow ochre, very sort of light. It's a very sort of browny greyish colour. So what I'm going to do here is I've mixed it up. I've mixed up some brown burnt umber and a little bit of cobalt blue. That's just it's darkened the brown a bit. And then in this I've got the same, but I've just put some neutral tint in, which has darkened it up. So we've got a lighter wash and a darker wash. And all I'm going to do, simply paint in. And then just wait a tad, and then we'll go in with the darker, and we will streak it in to try and simulate of what we can see on the photograph. Right, now I think this is may have dried sufficiently. It's not rag paper, so it dries a bit funny. All I'm going to do is try and streak this up. See, this dry, it's wet there, but it's dried there at the top. So if this happens, doesn't matter. All I'm going to do is I'll put that like that. Some bit of damp, clean brush, but just damp, and just streak that in like so. put it down just to try and make a few little marks. Even if they're slightly water marks like they are, it's going to give texture. And as this roof, it's not up here, it's down here, so it doesn't have to have that much detail in. We just want to try and make it appear like there's a little bit of texture in there. So just a little bit more burnt umber, a touch of, I think this is carbon black. It's a slightly thicker paint. Let's get a bit of dark up there, a little bit of dark around there, and just see if we can streak a little bit in. And we'll see what that looks like when it's dry. But while that is drying, we can go all the way down here and sort out this pavement or the road. Now it looks like it's cobbled, so what colour is it? It's a grey colour. Let's stick a little bit of French ultramarine and some light red, because that's going to give a very nice sort of greyish tone. A colourful grey. Put a little bit of more water in and we'll see what this is like. Now just streak it across. This is just an underwash. Now I am going to, of course, dab some of this off to give texture. Just as you've seen me do in the past. So of course for texture, we just get our kitchen roll, our little rag, just rip a little bit off so you've got a fluffy end, and then just dab here and there to just take some of the tone off, and you get this nice sort of slightly textured area even before we start. Now before I do anything else, I'm going to let the complete thing dry. We have got a nice little bit of texture in the road, but the next thing I'm going to do is, I think, the foliage. Now I'm going to do the foliage quite simplistic. We've already got our greens here, so as before I'm going to use the same greens as I did for the roof. I'm going to have a nice sort of sunny green there, and here I'm going to have a darker green. Maybe there's a touch of red in just to make it a little bit more neutral, like so. So quite simply, in with the light. We'll start with this big like conifer type tree or whatever it is, and simply paint in the sunlit side. Like so. Then go into the darker green. And paint in the side that we haven't painted. Not going into this tree because this is going to be a separate, so we can't put this on when it's in one fell swoop, as they say. And we'll leave that something like that. I'll do the same with this. And just going around. As it's rounded, it's not flat, it's got some girth to it. We'll do this like that, and then into this dark, and then just paint in the dark area. And I think what we may do is, while that is wet, just put a few little blobs of even darker green. Just like that. So it's just a nice bonny green. And then I'll just do all of the other brushes exactly the same. I may slightly modify the greens on some of them, just to make them stand out, but the technique is going to be exactly the same. Now while the foliage is in, it's not exactly dry in places, and I will put some flowers. There are looks like roses or something on parts of them, so I will sort of define them up a little bit when it's dry. But I put the paint on, I got a brush some clean water, and I splattered some water on to make some textural marks. And I've used the greens I've used. Some of the greens are granulating, so you've got some nice granulation here and there. I'm just lightening up some of the roofs, changing the colour slightly by, this is an underwash, I'm just putting a simple glaze just to give a little bit of more colour to them. And the glaze is just simply light red, and it's a little bit of azo yellow light, which is a little bit like lemon yellow. It's just a cool bright yellow. Now it has dried off a bit, and I've put the guttering in, or a drain pipe. This was just French ultramarine and carbon black. I've put these little bollards in, which was just French ultramarine, bit of light red, and a touch of yellow ochre. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to put the windows in. Now the windows, I'm just going to paint in, because they're only small, the same colour I did the drain pipes and the guttering. And I'm using a small brush and just simply put them in. Now if you've got any white window frames, which we do have in some of these windows, I'm not going to mess around trying to paint in individual windows in something this small. I'd rather just paint in the window as is, and then afterwards use a bottle of white ink, opaque ink, and then maybe with a dipping pen simply paint in the window frames. That's going to be much easier than to just fiddle around and do it the hard way. Now a lot of this foreground is now in, but we still have to put the frontage of the buildings in. Now you can see that it's not red brick, it's more like a raw sienna-ish type, Naples yellow type stonework. So all I've done here is I've mixed up some bit of raw sienna and a little bit of Naples yellow, and so I'm just going to put this on. Let's see what the colour's like. It's not exactly right, but I can put another colour over this, I suppose. It's actually all the same colour all along. So if I can get this on before it dries, because I want to get some texture into this by using the old rag method. And then I'm putting a little bit more, this is some burnt umber into that mix, and I shall it's drying very quickly. Just see if we can mimic a few little textures like blocks. Like there's a negative block there. Exactly how I do brickwork. Just a few little dabs here and there. A little bit of water dropped in. Little dabbing here and there. Just the impression, the hint of some darker blocks or stones. Drop of water, just to merge them together a little bit. There's a few blocks of this stone there. It looks out of place as is, but as soon as you drop a little bit of water on, pull it around a touch, Just join a few bits together, and then if you need just a touch of dabbing, just so it appears that you're starting to get some different coloured stone blocks. And I'm going to do exactly the same with that and that. Okay, now I've put the colour in on these houses, as I said. You can see it now. It looks like, just by applying different bits of paint and pulling it around with a little bit of water, it looks like they've got stones in them, stone blocks, without actually having to paint in any stone blocks. So I'm happy with what they look like. So the next thing is to put a texturizing wash onto the ground, basically. So all I've mixed here it's the same colour. This is like cobalt blue, a bit of light red, and a little bit of raw sienna. So it's just a dark version of what we've got. And I'm going to attempt, it's not rough paper, so you're not going to get dry brush, unfortunately. But I'm going to attempt to try and get some sort of texture. Just a little bit of clean water, see if we can get some cauliflowers here and there. A little bit of splattering with the clean water, get some cauliflowers, add for texture. And then I put a little bit more raw sienna into this mix, so it warms it up a little bit. And then I'm just using a rigger here. And then with the very tip, I just want to try and get a mark sort of going around in this direction, so it looks like you're following the shape of the road around. A little bit of splattering. And we'll leave it at that. Now while I'm waiting for this to dry, I'm going to put a little bit of detailing in the chimney pots or chimney stacks. And all I'm going to do is have some light red, a bit of light red, a little bit of blue, could be French ultramarine or cobalt blue, doesn't really matter. And that's just going to darken it down a touch, dirty it up, and just using this small rigger, I'm just going to put a little bit. Actually, that might be a little bit too big even for that small area. So I'll just change to the usually small brush I usually use for this type of stuff. Put a few hints at bricks in. Again, drop a little bit of water. Just tickle it around so it just joins little bits up, so it's not individual blocks or bricks in this case. It sort of merges together, so it just looks like it's perhaps brickwork. I've just put some more texturing in the foreground just by splattering with some different colours, and I've just put a darker tone over this brickwork here and a bit of the roof just to knock it back a bit. So what I'm going to do now is put some just red into these bushes, because they do have a little bit of well, it looks like roses. Next job is to put a little bit more texturing into this thatched roof. So I've just mixed up French ultramarine and burnt umber, just to make a darker colour of what's on. I'm just going to put a line across. This is just under the at the top, and then I'm going to see if I can just blend this in, dry brush it across using a rigger to try and get like a scratchy type of a look. Put a bit there and a bit dark there. And that'll do me. Now to finish these houses off with the main colours, these are white houses, whitewashed, but they do have a tone on them. They're not pristine. So I've mixed up a little bit of cobalt blue, touch of neutral tint, lots of water. I'm just going to slightly dab around on this whitewashed wall. A little bit of this very dilute colour, just to give it the impression that it is a little bit dirty. A little bit of water as ever, drop it on, blend it in a little bit. Now you can see the difference between that and that. So that's all the picture painted in. The only thing we haven't got is shadows, but we have got quite a large area still to do. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have a little bit of sky in, and I'm going to I've mixed cobalt blue and some neutral tint, and that's just going to make a very subdued blue. So I don't want anything bright or vivid in the background. So this is the colour. This is going to be the sky. Remember, no pencil drawn or anything of that nature. And then I'm going to start putting in some green. Same greens I've used for the foliage. And then I'm just going to paint in this green. This is the beginning of the hills in the background, where it sort of merges into the sky. I go around the trees. I'm going to put a bit more green in. Just go around everything. Everything's nice and sharp, there's no fiddly bits. So we put some green there. And then I think I might put a little bit more sunshine or some yellow, azo yellow light, which is just a cool yellow. And as we get forward, come forward into the landscape, it gets a bit brighter. It's going to be a tree there, and so we'll just leave that like so. So we're looking back into the distance, a bit lighter, more colourful there. As we go back, the colour gets less and less, and at the back we've got some, you can barely discern the landscape from the sky. And I can put some little bits of hedgerows and or trees, in fact, when it's all dry. Now that's dry, we need to put a little bit of texturing, trees, into background. So I've just subdued this green, the same green I put here, with all this other stuff mixed in. I've just subdued it down a bit so it's not as bright. We'll just put some foliage. It just makes it look like it's got something in the background. Lots and lots of detail, trees and whatever, but not really too prominent. Just an impression of what's actually there. And then for the trees in the foreground, it's just pretty much the same as what we did for the foliage, the bushes and such. Just going to have a nice light green or sunshine green. So all we like to do now is to put the shadows in. Now the shadow colour is French ultramarine, cadmium red and a touch of yellow ochre, just to knock it down ever so slight. And now we've got to figure out where I'm going to put the shadows. So well, obviously these houses have to be in sunlight, so the sun is going to be down here. So we're going to have the sun this coming here but slightly up here. So the left hand side of the chimney stacks are going to be in shadow. I think this is going to be in shadow. We get some shadow under the eaves, and maybe there's a little bit of shadow of this roof on to this roof. And we can have some shadows of this area here stretching across the road. So largish brush, or a brush that holds a lot of liquid. And then we just carefully put our shadows in. All this will be in shadow. Let's not beat around the bush. All this in shadow here. So that's all the shadows in. It does lighten it up quite a bit, but it's only just one more thing to do now. And that's, remember I said it was easier just to paint in the window frames or the window panes in the dark, and then use some white ink at the end to actually draw in the window frame. Now these window frames, they're all going to be white in this case. So I'm not going to be too neat about it. That's the picture finished. A nice, colourful, bold pen and wash of one of the most famous streets in England. We have some nice texture in the foreground due to splattering and dropping water on to form cauliflowers. The shadows, the deep shadows, give the impression of sunlight. We've got some just marks really, they're just watery marks. They don't look much at all, but they represent trees in the background. And then we've got some quite bold trees in the foreground to separate the back from the sort of the mid region, and with some scrapes from a stick to form what looks like could be branches, that type of thing. And again, we've got texture in the foliage here, just by, yes, we used a few granulating paints, but then again we used splattering with clean water to also make cauliflowers, which forms texture. It's just a pretty little picture, nothing more, nothing less. Nothing special about it. I think it gives more of an impression of the day, a nice sunny day. So I hope you enjoyed this little demonstration of painting one of the most famous streets in the UK. If you did enjoy that and you haven't subscribed and you'd like to see me paint more of this type of thing, then please subscribe. It's all free, and leave a comment. It all helps the channel. And all being done, I'll see you next week, so goodbye.